Hi everyone, I want to bring you my Nightmare Dungeon tier list updated for Diablo 4 Season 2. Not every dungeon is created equal, and a lot of people have been asking me about which dungeons to run for either experience farming or for glyph leveling. And the other day I took some time to run through all of them and collect some data, and here we are. So I've done this with my Rain of Arrows rogue. It's between level 70 to 85 or so. We actually level up quite a lot now, just trying to do every single dungeon once. So the XP values in particular are sometimes maybe a bit off. There's also a bit of RNG in there. So this ranking might not be 100% accurate because it just takes a long time to even do every single one. You have to get the sigils, etc. But I try to kind of like even it out and reduce the RNG as much as possible. So what I did is I played the Rain of Arrows rogue, which was pretty solid, like A tier build. So nothing was super OP, nothing really bad. We had no shrines, curse events, etc. I added a flat 30 seconds penalty for loading screens. I standardized intermission events to 15 seconds. So where you like get locked into a room with levers and stuff like that. And I did not consider the monster difficulty. So some of them are kind of dangerous dungeons filled with ghosts, for example, and these kind of things. So I did not really include it in the rankings. However, we have some notes here. We have the monster types listed here. So also if you're trying to farm, for example, certain specific drops for monster families or monster parts, for example, for potions or something, there you also get a bit of an idea of which dungeons you want to go. But for the most part, I guess people are interested in the glyph and the XP rankings. So let's go into that. So let's start with the XP rankings. If you want to level up to level 100, this is, keep in mind, for solo players. So for groups, there might be some dungeons that you can really split farm really heavily. For example, Carrion Fields comes to mind or so, but there are some dungeons where you can spread out a little bit and go in different directions as a team. I did not really include that here in this ranking. This is only for solo rankings. By far the best dungeon that I found here is Sirocco Caverns, and we have Deserted Underpass. These are two really strong dungeons. You see here there's the XP per minute with my runtime, so it's like nearly 1 million per minute. That is a pretty good XP value for those two. So these are in the S tier, and it's also Sanguine Chapelle. So even as little as a character level 72, I get almost 1 million XP per minute here. So these are kind of the top dungeons. Then we have a few others here in A tier. So we have Light's Watch, for example, is kind of okay. That has a decent value. Then we have the Fetid Mausoleum. Lots of drowned monsters there. In particular, these drowned monsters are generally decent for XP, but it's not really the case for every single dungeon. That depends a bit on the objectives. Some of these dungeons have basically no objectives at all. You just go through, you blast down big packs. There's no prisoners to click and there's no levers to click and stuff like that. So this contributes to this ranking basically because the runtime increases without you getting any XP for that. Yeah, some other dungeons that are pretty good here. Renegade's Retreat, actually, that surprised me a bit, but it's really filled with those knights and bandits. And then the Flooded Dead's full of the round. That is a kind of decent one here for XP. There's a bunch of others that I also like running that are kind of decent. So Carrion Fields here, Embiid here, Whispering Vaults, but it has ghosts, so I want to be a bit careful there, for example. Also, some of those dungeons have a lot of like poison spiders. Even some of the good dungeons, like Deserted Underpass, for example. So you gotta be a bit careful in those dungeons because you can get heavy poison on you. And if you don't have good poison resists, then you might be in trouble. Some other decent dungeons here. Hallowed Ossuary is pretty okay. And then Steadfast Barracks, Conclave, and, well, the other dungeons, they're like C, D, and F tier. So I'm not gonna go through every single one. But basically, those I just mentioned are the best for leveling up. So I leveled my character, my first one, mostly for Nightmare Dungeons, and I did not have this list available yet, but I was kind of like going by gut feeling, and that kind of overlaps with my gut feeling that I had on day one when I leveled my rogue to level 100. So those are the dungeons that I would suggest if you want to level up. Of course, if you have any kind of data of your own, I would be happy to see that as well, because as I mentioned, there is RNG in there, there's different character levels. I try to like even that out a bit with like a penalty and stuff like that for the higher level dungeons. But yeah, generally, I think this is kind of the dungeons you want to go for. And then there's a bunch that are really bad that you want to avoid, like Tormented Ruins, for example, is like almost half the XP of like the top tier dungeons, for example. There's just not that many monsters, you have to run around a lot. It has like this bunch of skeletons there. That's about it, basically. So this is really bad. Goa Ruins as well, Heaven's Keep. You want to avoid those kind of dungeons if you want to level up fast. However, this might be a bit different for the glyphs. So if you want to level up your glyphs a lot, and especially in this season, I guess a lot of people are actually running around with very low glyphs because of all the open world stuff that people are doing with Hell Tides for Duriel and the vampire stuff. So I also have that issue that even farming Nightmare Dungeons all the time, I end up with not fully leveled glyphs at level 100. So in that case, the ranking changes a little bit. So some of the really fast dungeons that you can complete just to get your glyphs up really fast without really caring about XP are definitely Belfry Sakara, this is S tier, and Goa Ruins. This is like the fastest dungeon overall. You can complete this as little as like 2 minutes or so in a fast build. You just basically rush through it as an intermission event, and then you go to the boss straight up with no objectives. So this is a really quick one. And there are some other decent dungeons as well. There's also some of them that I kind of full cleared for this ranking for getting the XP values, but they can be shortcut and be much better when you shortcut them and don't actually full clear. So for example, I have some notes here. Light's Watch can be shortcut a little bit, or the Carrion Fields can be shortcut quite a bit. So even though the runtime here might look really bad, this is because I full cleared these dungeons, or almost full cleared them in this test. So this is why they have actually a better ranking here for glyphs than other dungeons with a similar time, in case you're wondering. But yeah, these two are the best here. We have a bunch of A tier dungeons. They can be done here 2.5 minutes or so. So Jalal's Vigil is pretty nice. It's kind of the same story. You just run to the boss. There is Hidden Keep. And yeah, a bunch of other dungeons that are like in B tier here, like the Carrion Fields I mentioned, Hallowed Ossuary, Light's Watch. These are pretty decent dungeons. And here the Crusaders Cathedral is also relatively fast. And the Vault of Forsaken. So there's a bunch of dungeons here that I can run if you just want to level up your glyphs really quick. And then there's again like some kind of mid-tier dungeons here everywhere. The ones that you should really stay away from is Forbidden City, as the name suggests. That is like the longest dungeon I felt. It has like a slay all objective at the end. It's also super dangerous with red ghosts. So I would definitely not suggest that one. This is like the new Black Asylum dungeon basically. Bloodsoaked Crag is also kind of slow, so runtime over 5 minutes here. It's like a really long dungeon, like an open area dungeon where you have to go super far, so especially on slower builds this will feel horrible. And well, a bunch of other dungeons here in C and D tier that are kind of like mid-range. So if you want to pay a bit of attention to which dungeons you're running, then I would suggest, you know, those S and A tier dungeons for the most part, either for XP or for glyphs, depending on what you're actually trying to achieve. I would suggest to mostly go for the better glyph dungeons this season, because leveling is so fast to the 100 anyway, and you're not going to end up with your glyphs leveled up, especially if you do a lot of outdoor stuff. You might not even get your glyphs to level 15, so you might not even be able to, you know, fully set up your Paragon board the way you want it. So this is just something to keep in mind here this season around. If you are curious, I have done this test live on stream, so I have like this 8-hour session here where I went through all of those dungeons basically. And if you want to watch any of those dungeons, then you can just skim through that VOD. I will have that linked in the description as well, so you can watch the Twitch VOD there basically and see me doing this test and actually putting in the data in real time basically, and then discussing it here and there. So this is also something, if you're curious or if you want to contribute, let me know, and I can also like maybe adjust a few things here. But this is probably something that we're going to put on the Maxroll side very soon. So usually we have the Maxroll tier list here with the Nightmare Dungeons, also ranked by glyph and by experience gains. So if you go to Maxroll here, we have this, but so far we didn't have the data and we were not able to test those dungeons before the season started because they completely revamped some of these. So this is currently the season 1 tier list, but very soon this will be updated with, well, probably this or something very close to it. So this is what I wanted to get out here. I wish you good luck with the rest of season 2 and see you guys next time.